It's a football Friday. People love it. They really do. And on the text line, which is open 902-518-3033, you can always reach us here in the Florida studio. Bomber Boy, he's in Calgary. He writes in, he says, death, taxes, and Jim Barker's hot takes on the RP Football Friday show. Let's go. Ken is watching in Pennsylvania, and he says, although Mr. Barker is larger than life on the TSN panel, I bet in person off camera, he's very humble and contemplative. I don't know about that. Let's bring him in, the star of the CFL on TSN panel. Jim, I've known you a long time. I would say you're exactly the same on TV as you are in real life. Agree or disagree?
I would agree with that. I pretty much am who I am. I don't change much. And it's part of what I think. I never will consider myself a media person. I just can't do it.
Yep.
I consider myself a coach, a person who's managed and things, who's giving a different perspective of the game and of the way you look at it and that type of thing. But no, I am who I am.
Hey, and we love it. That's why you're on there. And Dunnigan says the same thing. This is no substitute for coaching or playing. Dunnigan will say it, but you guys are on there because you do a great job. No offense taken, although you are a media guy. Kirk writes in from Toronto. Kirk says, could you ask, please, Jim Barker, if he still thinks the Argos are still going to win the Grey Cup? Some of us Argo fans are nervous with the possibility of meeting Hamilton in the Eastern Final. Thank you.
Well, I picked them at the beginning of the year. I was the only person on the panel that picked them to not only win the division, but win the Grey Cup. I still think they have a great shot. I mean, obviously, they've got 6 games to play. How they handle these 6 games is going to be crucial. Ryan Dinwiddie, since the beginning of last year when I was there, he handled this very much as a 1 week at a time deal. We're going to be 1-0 this week. We're going to be 1-0 this week. The problem comes in that you get a guy, you want to give guys rests, and I think they'll be judicious in how they do that. So in terms of winning the Grey Cup, I absolutely am not backing down on my prediction. I do believe they have the best football team in the CFL. Their record proves it. You are what your record says you are, and this is an 11-1 football team. No Toronto Argonaut team in 140 years has ever been 11-1. So that speaks volumes. And again, it gets overshadowed. Trey Ford's story is huge in the CFL, and it's an exciting story. But to have a first-year quarterback take a team to an 11-1 record, which is basically the same team as last year, there are really no huge changes. Isaiah Cage is playing left tackle, but he's been in and out. And Trevon Tate, who played last year, is there. Obviously, Bladek is down, who was a high-priced player. He's been replaced by Darius Sirocco. But other than that, the offensive line's intact. The receiving core is basically the same. Cam Phillips has stepped in for Markeith Ambles, but the other pieces of it are the same. A.J. Ouellette started the season and not even on the team. He lost his spot for a bit, but then came on and proved what he can do toward the end of the season. But for the most part, the offense is the same. The defense is younger and faster, and that always gives you a chance when you get better on defense. And I think they did get better on defense. Again, they're going through some injury issues like everybody, and they have a chance now to be judicious in who they play. But I think they still have a long way to go to get to that point. They're just their consistency on both sides of the ball. I think on offense, there's times when they just seem to stymie themselves. And on defense, they get a lead and they sometimes fall back or they fall behind. And now they say, okay, we got to play better. And they step up and do it. So in terms of complementary football, they've truly done that. When their special teams need to step up, they've stepped up. So again, I think they're the most complete team in the league right now. And I would not back down on my pick of them to win the Grey Cup.
Yeah, I don't know where to go with this because the big base of CFL fans are in Western Canada, but there's also millions of CFL fans in Eastern Canada that don't get the coverage. So we'll try and cover it all here in the time that we have with you. In Montreal and Hamilton, it's a battle for second place, and they don't feel like good teams, yet their records aren't terrible. They have the same amount of wins as Sask. So what do you think of the Owls and Ticats?
Well, again, it's like this game, the game tomorrow, the first game, Montreal playing Calgary, is really interesting for Hamilton, who is the last game of the week, because you have Calgary who's behind them trying to get the crossover, and then you have them tied with Montreal. Obviously, I personally believe Hamilton is the better team right now than Montreal. Montreal has a lot of positive things going for it. Hamilton has, again, some question marks, but they're getting guys back, and I just believe that they're the better team. It's going to be interesting. I think they have a great opportunity tomorrow against the Argos. I think it's a great challenge for the Argos. AJ Ouellette's not going to play. They're going to play Deontay McMahon in the backfield, who, again, he's a great little runner. But it's going to be his first time ever playing a real CFL game. And with some of the different kinds of things that Hamilton, I know Orlando Steinauer and Mark Washington, they'll have some things dialed up that will be difficult for the young running back. So I think they're going to keep Cam Phillips out another week, and Curly Gittins is out. So, again, you're trying to get a young quarterback in Chad Kelly, he's basically started 12 games, finished 11 of them, and won them all this year. You can't really ask a lot more of a young quarterback, but he needs to continue to grow. He needs to continue to see the kinds of things he's going to see in this game tomorrow with Hamilton. So I think it's a big game for Toronto, even though they don't need to win it. It's no big, but I think it's a big game just in terms of them moving forward in terms of themselves. For Hamilton, obviously, it's huge. Depending on what happens with Montreal and Calgary, either way, if Montreal was to win, then Hamilton needs to win to keep pace. And should Calgary win, Hamilton needs to win to keep that cushion for so there's no crossover. So, it's kind of an intriguing weekend in that sense. And then the games tonight are really interesting.
Yeah. Right. Well, every game's a playoff game. That's how I feel right now, the rest of the way. We're in the playoffs now, basically. And I welcome our viewers. There's a lot of questions about the Argos. You see what I said? There's millions of fans in Eastern Canada. They don't get the coverage. They come here because they want to talk about CFL football. So, again, I don't know where to go because we don't have a ton of time with you, Jim. But I'll say this. Edmonton winning in Sask last week created chaos in the Western Conference. Chaos. If Sask had won, they'd have pretty much locked down a spot.
Also with BC, with Ottawa finding a way, ever since I picked Ottawa on your show to come out and beat Hamilton after that 3-day prep run-in, and the game was, I just figured this is Ottawa's up. Ever since then, I've lost all faith in them. And again, I think they have a great opportunity tonight against Sask. I think Sask is beat up. Their defensive line is not going to be what it is or what it's been. Cordy Moore's going to get a start. Blake is starting tonight, but like I said last week, I think as soon as you move him to tackle, if either one of those starting tackles for Saskatchewan, offensive tackles, were standouts, either counts. If either one of them were standouts, I'd say great, but neither one of them are. And Blake gives you so much ratio flexibility on defense where I think they need it. At this point, they're going to move Moncrief back to safety, and they're going to play a Canadian on the front, either Cordy Moore or Dabeyer, and then they're going to play Micah Tights. And I just think they could do so much by moving Blake in. And Evan Johnson has struggled. He has trouble getting his hands in, and people get into him and push him back into the quarterback. But I'm not sure the drop off there is as much as how good they could be on defense if they didn't have that that ratio issue that they're dealing with differently tonight, and it'll be interesting to watch. So that game's a very interesting one, Saskatchewan and Ottawa. I can't pick Ottawa ever again after that, and then after last week, that was to me, it was one of the worst calls I've ever seen, trying to kick a 50-yard field goal when you're up by 10. It just puts you up by 13. It's still a 2-score game. Yeah, field goal could tie it. But I honestly, when he lined up for the field goal, I was really excited because one of the things that we used to always do with Don Matthews was we practiced the kicker kicking it out of bounds, like down inside the 10 or the 5. Nobody does that anymore, but it's much more accurate to kick the ball out of bounds than it is to punt it. Punting it, your ball goes into the end zone, all those things. Again, they could have punted it into the end zone. If it goes into the end zone, they end up they've got to score 2 touchdowns. Kicking the field goal just made 0 sense. Again, Lewis Ward had made a couple from 50, but that's not his forte. His forte is a 45 in, and anytime you miss a field goal in the CFL over 45 yards, you better, as a coach, I can tell you, because I've been through it, your fanny gets so tight, that ball's in the air, and then you see it fading, and you see that returner moving out, and I'm telling you, there is nothing worse than the feeling of your big fat guys running down, trying to tackle that little receiver, and oh my gosh, and it came to fruition for them last week. So that was a shame.
How about this?
BC Edmonton, how can you not talk about that? I mean, that's just, Trey Ford against a BC defensive line and defense that's fast. I don't think they're real physical. I don't think they're great against the run, but they are fairly fast, and that can help them with Trey Ford. But Trey Ford's been magic.
I was just going to say about Bobby Dice. He's been questioned all week long about that call, and I was on Ottawa radio this week talking about it. Coaches never admit that they made the wrong call. Ken Miller was like the only guy that would ever admit he made the wrong call in a situation. It's the way coaches are. Did you expect him to say, yeah, I blew it? You don't hear it very often.
No, because, the bottom line is the players in there have to believe he's going to make the right call. And, sometimes you make those kind of calls. I had my first game as the head coach in Calgary, where we're playing the defending Grey Cup champion Alouettes that I had coached with the year before. And we have a 3rd and 1 it's in overtime, and we can either tie it and go into another overtime or go for it. And we went for it, and I took, Joe Sports, who, Colin Smith, who was just a good friend. He and I had a radio show there in 2004. He said when he passed away, he was on his bed, and he said, Jim, that's the worst call I've ever seen in my entire life. And I to this day say, you know what? I would do it again. Obviously, there are calls you always think back and say, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But no, I'm not. And I'm not begrudging Bobby for making that call. That's a call you have to make. For me, I thought it was an awful call. And that's just my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. But again, Bob Dice has earned the right to be the head coach there. He's earned the right to make that decision, and that means you've earned the right to be scrutinized, which is what makes the CFL so great, because you and I can sit on here and we can scrutinize every single thing that's done.
Oh, yeah, and those coaches love it so much. Hey, Jim, we've reached the end of our time. I appreciate it as always. Enjoy the ball. We'll be watching. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Rod. Loved it.